Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. And each week we come together here to actually discuss things that you can be working on in your business to build the premier accounting firm in your area. It's here we're going to dive into various topics related to marketing, selling, pricing, onboarding clients, retaining clients, offering quality accounting services, getting paid what you're worth, and perhaps even mental health. Just those topics that you need to consider as you're running your business and, in fact, taking care of your clients. Now, as a show or an episode, each and every week we try to bring on guests, experts that are actually either functioning in this capacity so as to learn from our peers, or more importantly, actually hear from experts as it relates to various specialty topics that they have. And this is going to be a gem because I believe our guest today is both. Lahari Neelapareddy, there we go, is a CPA. She happens to be the founder of Tax Hero and also LN Accounting Advisors. It's a virtual CFO and accounting firm that specializes in consumer packaged goods and e-commerce brands. She actually goes beyond traditional accounting to become, for their clients, their strategic growth partner, aligning their services with their visions and aspirations. Now, imagine a partner, if you could, that actually manages your finances with unmatched precision, but also strategizes for your growth, keeping your investment ready at all times, and more importantly, with a full suite of services tailored to e-commerce and consumer packaged goods. She's able to actually help businesses focus on things that are comprehensive and, more importantly, strategic, as they are becoming able and agile in pitching to investors confidently. So, Lahari, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a conversation I've been looking forward to, simply because your success and accomplishments. But I want to go back to the beginning and really focus on what brought you to the accounting profession to begin with. Why become a CPA?
Yeah, I think it was a very easy path for me in terms of why I wanted to choose accounting. I knew I wanted to do something in business, and accounting was something I was naturally really, really good at. And so at that point, it was also one of the jobs back in college where you knew you were going to get a job right out of college.
Yeah.
And so it was secure for me. And I felt like, oh, hey, I'm good at this, so why not do accounting? And so I did the traditional path in college where in 5 years, you got your master's and you got your bachelor's as well. And they helped you become a CPA. Big Four and non-Big Four companies were recruiting from college campus, got an internship, and immediately started in one of the public accounting firms, Grant Thornton, right after college.
Nice. So with that kind of career trajectory, one of the things that I think is so appealing is the fact that you looked at it logically. So many of the individuals I work with, they actually saw accounting just as you saw it. It's kind of like that sure profession or career to get into. Obviously, you took the fast track with the 5-year plan and then ultimately started working with a large firm. I guess the question then becomes, what took you from working with that firm to then eventually starting your own business?
Yeah, so I knew I always, like, since I was a kid, I think I knew I always wanted to own my own business, but I thought it was going to be like a coffee shop. And I also thought I was going to do it at like the age of 50. So
Okay.
that was always my thing. I was always a good marketing person. I always sold stuff, even as a kid. And so that was always my passion. I just didn't know what business I wanted to start. And I for sure did not think I was going to start an accounting firm. Because when I thought of people that owned accounting firm, I only thought tax, right? Like people that are CPAs that do tax returns at their desk. And the image is like very boring, is the image that most people get, right? And so I didn't think I would start an accounting firm. I started the traditional path of like audit, like I said, in Grant Thornton.
Yeah.
That was when I realized like I could not do audit. And the main reason was it felt like I was not adding value, or I couldn't see the direct impact that I was adding to our clients. It was just like ticking and tying is how I felt. So I decided, okay, I need to change what I'm doing, and I want to do something that is a lot more value add to the clients that I'm working with. So I went to Deloitte and I did financial advisory services. So pretty much like IPOs, mergers, financial reporting for Fortune 500 companies, things that I could see like direct impact and how I was actually adding value to our clients. I loved what I did. I actually really enjoyed it, but I hated all the politics around it and the whole work-life balance, and just like the way that the structure of Big Four was something that I just couldn't get behind. I didn't like just showing up because I had to show up, because we had to show face to the client and we had to
Okay.
sit here until 8 or 9 p.m. Just even if we didn't have work until the client left so that it looked good, that we could leave right after them. All of that politics that came with working at Big Four was something I despised. And I think there was actually a push from my parents where they were like, hey, why don't you just start your own accounting firm? And I was like, hey, I really don't want to do tax. I really don't want to, my background is all like financial reporting and all that stuff. And so I'm like, can I do it? Can I not do it? But I kind of got to a point where I was like super fed up with working at Deloitte, which I'm actually glad for that experience. I learned so much. And if I didn't get to that point, I know that like it wouldn't have pushed me to start an accounting firm at a way earlier stage in my life than I anticipated. And so I decided to move over to a normal company, McAfee, with the intention of starting an accounting firm, because obviously you can't do that when you're working at Big Four because of the non-compete stuff. And I was starting to like learn a lot more of what it meant to start an accounting firm. And I realized as I was, joining mastermind groups or like finding other people that were doing this so that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, that actually I didn't have to do tax. Like there was other things. Like bookkeeping was something that was obviously very foreign to me because I never ever did that back in, my corporate career. And that's not something that they really teach you in college, if you know what I mean. So I didn't know that like, hey, there's actually financial reporting for smaller brands, that I could be an outsourced CFO for smaller brands and all of that. And so I found that and I decided like, hey, if I could make as much as I made my first year starting off in audit, I'm just going to quit my job and I'm going to take this full speed. And I think that's kind of what made me like want to start it. I think two main things was like, I wanted to add value to my clients. I think that was always there. And the second thing was like, I wanted like a good work culture that I think is maybe still lacking in Big Four and the public accounting world, but definitely was lacking in the time that I was there.
Well, there's a number of things in what you just shared that I'd like to kind of dive into. One of which is you commented that while in school, you weren't actually prepared for the small business bookkeeping that traditionally happens in the economy today. For so many businesses out there, there is an accounting procedure that necessarily needs to happen, but in the college worlds, that's not what we're really trained in because of the audit exposure that we're receiving in preparation for the Big Four. So that was a big tell because of the fact that so many accounting professionals out there, although very experienced, very accomplished in their careers, they get into the small business accounting world and find that this is something a little bit different than what they may have either experienced or been trained in. So that's a great observation. But also the fact that when you were considering going out on your own, it was your parents that gave you that push, that nudge. And I find that in so many people's lives, it is that outside person that typically says, you know what, you can do this. And it's that confidence that they have in us that instills in us that desire to, okay, maybe I will take this risk because clearly someone sees in me that potential, that maybe that self-doubt creeps in and sabotages it. But more importantly, these outside people come in and say, you've got this, you can do it. But the one thing that I really wanted to kind of back into is the fact that of all the services that you chose to go out and offer, it wasn't audit. That's where your experience was. You felt that you could actually service the small business community and take care of them in a tax component and a CFO level. And so that's kind of where I want to go next, which is as you were considering the services that you would offer, what were the reasons for the services you chose to actually then provide?
So I actually decided in the beginning that I would do the whole, like my background at Deloitte was actually not audit. It was like financial reporting and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's where, and I worked with consumer product goods as well. So I had that knowledge of, I didn't actually ever do the bookkeeping. Like I never made a journal entry in my life until I started my accounting firm.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, this is so interesting and weird
Yeah.
because I did it all after the GL was closed. Those are the things I would do, right? And so I realized like that was the need that, like startups needed, right? Like that's what the need that they needed was bookkeeping, financial reporting. And then I thought like CFO was something that I just kind of threw there in the beginning because I'm like, what is being a CFO? It's a very vague term. And then I did offer like income tax services because I was trying to be a full service, full stop solution.
Yeah.
I think that, and that's honestly, I think the way that most people start, unless that, they only have the bookkeeping knowledge. I honestly didn't have that much of the tax knowledge, except for the fact that I'm a CPA. But I thought, hey, this is what my clients need, so I'm just going to do the full service. I think throughout my journey of owning this firm, LN Accounting, is what I realized is that was a bad idea to start off with. If I was to go back and redo it, I wouldn't have been a one-stop shop for sure. I think it was really hard to scale, especially the income tax service side, because I was the only CPA. And even as I was hiring other professionals, it was either people that were really good with tax or people that were really good with financial reporting, but it was almost impossible to find somebody that was good with both. And so we actually now currently don't do any income tax services. We outsource that, or not outsource it, but we refer it over to other accounting firms that can do that, because
Okay.
for e-com and consumer brands, it's a very complicated thing with multi-state, all of that kind of plays into it. So it's something that took us a while to realize, like, hey, we need to have the right people if we want to specialize and do it all. Eventually, we might actually bring it back in-house when we get big enough. But I don't think we're there yet where we would hire somebody specifically for tax work at the moment.
I'm really appreciative of the fact that you pointed out that you learned that you can't really specialize in everything and be a jack of all trades in the accounting sphere. There are clearly specific accounting roles that we can fulfill and offer to our clients. There are clearly accounting things that are needed by our clients, but we don't have to be the be all end all, the one to deliver it all, because you can have these associations, these affiliations, if you can, with other accounting firms that specialize in individual tax preparation, as you mentioned, because then it allows us to focus on what we're good at and be the experts in those areas. And you were able to more intelligently say, this is what we're going to be known for and do for our clients, while being willing to outsource or perhaps team up with other firms to offer additional services. Maybe later bringing it in-house, as you mentioned, but for now you're going to specialize, and you've chosen a few things that I think are worth mentioning, because one of the things that I know that you do from a tax perspective is you do have Tax Hero, where you're specializing in e-commerce tax. So many times people bring up this whole idea of niche marketing and the fact that if you can really focus on certain industries, you can excel in your business. It appears you've chosen to do that, and you've done so successfully with the two companies you run. So let's start talking about the e-commerce emphasis that you have. Why did you choose that? And what is it that's unique about that?
Yeah. So I think I picked the hardest industry, one of them. Okay. So, because I'll even get referrals from accountants that are like, hey, I don't want to handle anything that has inventory. I know you specialize in this, your team does this, so here you go, situation. So I get that all the time these days. But my background, like I was saying, at Deloitte, I worked in the like life sciences industry, but in particular, I worked in the consumer packaged goods segment of it. And so CPG and e-com were kind of something that I already knew, and it was like a tangible thing. So I already understood how to do the accounting for it. Like what I would say is inventory accounting. It's mainly we work with any brands that have inventory, right? Whether they sell online, which is e-commerce, or now everybody sells multi-channel online to distributors, retailers, everywhere. So we work with any brand that sells inventory. And I knew that from the very beginning that I needed to select a specific niche, because I think that was one thing that one of the mentors and one of the groups I was in, that they strongly suggested, because it's easier for marketing for sure, and it's easier to scale. And that was one of the best advice I got, because I did pick a complicated industry that I honestly think there could be more e-commerce and CPG accounting firms out there. Because there's so many brands that come out every single day, right? Like there's new brands that are starting all the time. COVID even accelerated it even more, and stuff like that. So from that, I knew kind of from the beginning that this is what I'm good at. So let me see how this goes, and let me see what that will take. And I think that's one of the hardest challenges I always have, is like when I bring on a new employee, it is how to get them fully trained in this space, because it is so unique and challenging. I think Tax Hero, as you were speaking about, it came from my accounting firm. The idea came. So I, as one of an outsourced CFO for one of our large cosmetics brand in 2018, kind of started running into sales tax problems. That's when the whole Wayfair versus South Dakota ruling happened. And it basically changed the landscape for e-commerce sellers. Before, it was like, only if you have a physical presence, like a storefront, you have to collect sales tax, right? Then it was like, okay, if you meet a certain threshold, all accountants know. It kind of created a mess. And
Yes.
being an accountant and having an accounting firm at the time and working with these brands that were running into these issues, I was getting very frustrated because any solution out there at that time was just Taxure and Avalara at the moment. They didn't solve it all. They solved like a small portion, and they kept being like, oh, for anything that like, even if they filed a return, anything that they did, they would say consult a tax representative. And that would be obviously us. So our clients were coming to us if there was notices, or clients were coming to us if there was any issues, but we were paying the software to do the work, and it wasn't really doing everything. It was doing a small portion of it. I was getting frustrated by that. And fortunately and unfortunately, I had to learn the whole sales tax landscape at that moment. And I decided like, hey, this is a larger problem than I thought it was when I first entered. And there's no solution out there that like truly solves the problem for both the founder and the accountant. And so that's why I created Tax Hero a few years ago. So what Tax Hero is in like an all-inclusive full stack solution for sales tax specifically for e-commerce and CPG brands. So we do everything from start to end, like registrations, audit support, sales tax reconciliation, returns, pretty much anything you can, being a PO mailbox, like anything you can imagine that's like relating to sales tax. And we work with so many accounting firms as well, that it's been kind of amazing to see, because accountants don't make profit off of compliance work, to be honest. We make profit off of value adding work, right?
Yeah.
No one thinks sales tax is value add service. So we're seeing like a lot of accountants, first of all, might not have the knowledge and don't want to have the knowledge because it's like time taking to get everything. So they'll kind of send over clients to us. We see clients white label their services, and have us do it as well. So we've seen kind of both ways with that. And for us, it's a lot easier to do that service because it's the same thing for every brand. And now that we know the landscape of sales tax, it's like a lot more efficient. And we have a software that kind of connects to the back end of most e-commerce platforms. And so it kind of takes out the burden from accountants. And even in our accounting firm, now our team doesn't need to know everything about sales tax as well.
So let me go from the sales tax side of things and everything you're doing there to the CFO and advisory services that you're also offering. Because one of the things that I find fascinating is, yes, the compliance work is necessary. Yes, the bookkeeping and the accounting is essential. But really where we're doing the value add, as you just mentioned a moment ago, is in that advisory capacity. So one of the things that you've done is you've got this separated business model where you're also offering advisory services. Tell us about that business model and how it differs from Tax Hero and why you have the two different businesses.
Yeah. So for Ellen Accounting, it's completely separate in terms of like, it's just a service, right? There's no tech component. It's just us doing the service for accounting. So it's a different business model in itself, because here it's a service. You need to hire people that can give advice and give feedback to clients. Like what we say is our simple tier of service, if you're signing up with our firm, is like you get controller service and above. So like at a minimum, because we're doing everything in accrual basis, bookkeeping and accounting, and we're dealing with inventory again, which is a little bit more complicated. It's like controller services and above. So that service itself is a different model because of that. And it is like a value add where you need to like meet with a client maybe more frequently than you would for Tax Hero. That's more of like Tax Hero is more like a software plus the service, but it's like a plugin and go and go, like once you join Tax Hero, the client never has to worry about sales tax again. So it's a complete different model because the way that it's structured as well. And like the people that we have, they're two separate employees, right? Like the knowledge, like I could not hire the same people that I hire for Ellen Accounting at Tax Hero and vice versa, because they're coming with different knowledges, right? Like typically at Ellen Accounting, we're hiring people that were controllers or are like good at doing books and, the financials and stuff like that. While in Tax Hero, we're kind of hiring people that have sales tax experience or come with tax experience that can do just sales tax.
Well, clearly what you're defining is that each has their own skill set, and you're trying to, in the LN accounting firm actually focus on client-facing roles. These are individuals who are going to be interacting with the clients. They're going to be offering more of this controller, CFO advisory type service. And so there's a lot more creative space there because you're looking at strategies and you're trying to figure out what it is that you can do with the client to help them make more informed business decisions. So let me kind of go down that path a little bit further and figure out what is it that you feel is so unique or different from accounting work that you're providing at that CFO and advisory level. What's unique about that experience that your client's having that's beyond the compliance work that you would traditionally expect with the financial reports?
Yeah, I think it's more analysis and more actual, I would say, strategic type of conversations that we have, and maybe hard conversations, right?
Yeah.
I think some of the things is like we tell them like, hey, we're your partner. We're not like just an employee that's doing what you tell us to do, right? Like the view and the mindset is different. I think even how the client sees us is like they do rely on us to make maybe tough decisions or like have those tough conversations with them about their cash flow or how their business is doing and give them the true insights, right? So it's like, I think it's like accounting sometimes can be looked as like reactive because it happens and then we do the work, right? While like CFO advisory services are more proactive. You're like trying to look into it and see like what pitfalls that they can fall into before they can fall into it.
Yeah.
And it is like a vague term. I do want to acknowledge that because people are like, what does that mean if you're doing CFO and advisory? And the deliverables could look very different. Like there's multiple things that you could do. You could do cash flow forecasting, right? Like, but at the end of the day, the value you're adding on these is like, is being a strategic guide for your clients.
Well, one of the things I want to kind of dive a little deeper into, let's say, is what you just last said, because the client, when they're actually agreeing to pay for this service, must have some objective that they're hoping to have you address or fulfill. So
Yeah.
what is it that you package or say this service consists of? What, when the customer is considering to pay you, are they thinking that they're paying for and buying?
Yeah. So we kind of have a 3-tier service model. And throughout the years, we've had to define it more because it's a vague thing, right? You could be like, they could be like, hey, I'm calling you. You're my CFO. I'm calling you every day. And you're like, okay, that you're not paying that much to call me every single day, you know? And you also shouldn't be calling me every day. Like, what's going on? That you're doing that. So we've kind of put it together, like, or my first thing that I always do is like during our sales and marketing process is like, hear what the client needs. Like, and I actually never, and this might be against what most people think, but I never sell them something that they don't actually need. Like if they are a $3 million brand and I don't think that they need CFO services right now, I will not sell them on that. I will tell them like, hey, you're too early for this. Maybe you stick with this, you know, and eventually you'll get there. But what we kind of add into that like CFO type of bundle is like 13-week cash flow forecast, financial budget versus actual so that they can see that. And then we do add in like, hey, this is how much CFO calls you'll have per month, or this is the frequency of the CFO calls. And this is what we will go over during those calls, like your financial health of the company, what you can do better. And here's some additional support you'll get if we are your CFO, where they can have like 2 emails or calls per month where they can reach out to us if they have questions that are kind of CFO related. So we do try to keep our scope of work very clear as much as we can. Service, obviously, industry is very hard with that because it does vary sometimes. But I think we've realized, and I know most accounting firms would relate to this, is like scope creep is like our biggest enemy.
Oh yeah.
In this industry. And it happens no matter what. Even if I keep the engagement letter very clear or anything, scope creep is something that I think we can't avoid for some reason. So it's just how to minimize it as much as we can is what I try to look at.
I like that. Well, just to give some context to this, in our firm, we have a division of our business called Universal Business Builder, where we offer advisory services. And in that CFO capacity, one of the things that we do is we try to more or less compartmentalize the services that we're offering so that the client can best understand what they're paying for. And so we've put together 5 things that we do. And you mentioned earlier that you have these 3 packages. Ours is basically one package, and it's very simple. It begins with Engage and Manifest, where we work with them on a leadership component and actually help them get greater vision of what it is they're trying to do in their business. The second is Understanding Accounting. And this is clearly that financial type thing that we're focusing on, where it's clearly dealing with the financial reports, but we're also getting into the KPI KPIs, and we're identifying very specific metrics that we're going to be watching within the organization. The third happens to be increasing revenue. We're looking at in their business, what is the model that they have to invest and actually generate revenue, and what can we do to actually increase the ROI on those things. So we're really looking at top line revenue production and what's happening there. The third is increasing or improving profit. With improving profit, we're trying to say, what can we do to minimize expenses and actually draw most of the funds that we can as much as possible to that net profit. And as we try and focus on increasing or improving the net profit of the business, we're giving that business owner something more to get excited about, because they can see that ultimately it is resulting in an improved profit margin. And then the fifth thing that we do is basically build value. It's where we're recognizing that that client has a business that's an asset, and we're trying to actually look at it from a variety of ways to basically say, how can we make the company worth more today than it was yesterday? And when we have those 5 areas of focus, we find that we have valuable conversations with our clients. We're doing, like you were explaining, getting into various things that relate to making more informed business decisions, cash flow management. All those things kind of bundle into those 5 elements. And that's where I think the client feels like they're actually paying for something that is helping them become better leaders. Those 5 things that I've mentioned, I'm sure correlate to what you're offering. So the next question I'd like to ask is, how do you feel your clients' relationships change? Meaning, do you feel you retain them longer because you're more embedded with these clients? Do you feel that you're getting paid better because of the services that you're offering, more so than you would have if you were just offering compliance services?
Yeah, definitely paid more for sure. I think that like people value these services more than, simple just bookkeeping, right? And I think that's why even our minimum, like since we're controller and above, is what I say is like we have a minimum that we charge for any client that's joining us. I think the relationship part is interesting because it's like I transparently from like what I've seen is like it doesn't mean that we are their client or they're our client for longer at all times, but it also doesn't mean that they're our client for a shorter time.
Yeah.
There has been time that like we're at capacity for example, CFO services, like, depending on who we're hiring as well as like what we're able to offer, like that we can't take on CFO, but we can do everything else. And sometimes what I'm surprised to see is that it doesn't impact the client. They still want to sign with us. And they're like, okay, well, do you have any other CFOs you recommend? And we do have some people that we have good relationships with that will recommend as their CFO because we're at capacity with that part of the service. So I think it doesn't impact the relationship if you're adding value at the end of the day. And it has to be some value. Like, why would they pick you if you're just doing pure bookkeeping? And it's not even just pure bookkeeping. If your value is like you do it for all different industries, you're not specialized in their industry, you don't know the nicks and knacks of their industry either, they might not pick you compared to somebody that like really speaks their language and that they feel like, okay, I don't have to worry about my financials if I pick this person. So I think the relationship part doesn't really change is what I've seen, or maybe I haven't seen enough of it where I see that. But I do think that obviously you can charge more when you're adding that type of service, right?
Yeah.
Compared to just bookkeeping.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago that you have a minimum. What is the minimum fee you charge for these services?
So I charge a minimum of $2,500 per month.
Nice.
For our clients. I think there's no way we can do less because of the quality that we do and the type of people we kind of put on these clients. We do have an offshore team, but we also have US resources. So it's just like, and the amount of data we deal with because of the industry we're in, it is just like the minimum that we can do that makes it work for us.
Very nice. And by the way, that range or that 2,500 is within the range that I'm very familiar with. Typically, it's no less than 1,500 up to about $1,000, or excuse me, $3,000 a month for these types of services. So you're spot on there. I'm curious, how much time commitment do you find that you're actually then devoting to a client once a month as it relates to these services?
So to the outsource CFO and advisory services in particular?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that just depends on the type that they kind of pick, because some people pick like a light version, right? Where they're like, hey, I want to meet with you monthly, or I want to meet with you quarterly, and we don't want any cash flow, or cash flow is good, but I just need to know that I need some advice from you, right? And like, I need you to dig into my financials, see how I can cut spending, increase my revenue, like you said. And so it could be anywhere between like 3 hours per month on the services all the way till like 10, 15 hours per month. It just kind of depends on what exactly we're doing for them.
So when I've had this conversation with many of people, they're saying that they're averaging between 3 to 6 hours a month on the CFO advisory level. Would you say that's in line with what you're experiencing?
Yeah, I think we could say that. I think the additional time is for other deliverables we're doing that kind of roll up into it, but
Yeah.
the actual CFO advisory was probably 3 to 6. Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to bookkeeping and accounting type services, we've found that the range is around 8 to 10, sometimes as many as 12 hours a month. And then as it relates to the CFO advisory, it's an additional 3 to 6 hours a month. So you're right. It basically gets compartmentalized into the different functions of what it is you're performing for the client.
Yeah.
So here's my next question as it relates to your business. Clearly, you look back on when it was that you started your company, you had that support of your parents and so forth. If you went back and kind of spoke to that younger self, two questions. What do you feel they didn't realize when they started the business, when you were just getting going and had the lofty dreams of building what you did? What didn't you realize? But the second thing is what advice would you have for that person?
Yeah, I think one thing I didn't realize is that burnout is a real thing. You know, when you're younger, and also like I had that like drive, I had that like fire inside of me, and I started the business technically, I think in end of 2018. 2019 was my first full year, and then COVID hit. I did not see the sun during COVID because I worked like a machine. But right after COVID, I basically felt so burnt out that I almost lost my passion,
Mm.
and I think that's what I would warn my younger self. And the advice I would give is like sustainability over growth sometimes, right? Because growth will come automatically, but you need to make sure that you don't lose that passion and that you're sustaining it, is what I would say. And I think growth also, a growth that comes so quickly without thinking about it, comes with its set of problems, right?
Yeah.
Like I threw people at the problem instead of trying to fix the problem, which was a mistake I know I made, which is why now we're at our accounting firm, we're all about, sustainable growth, for like, instead of just being like, let's grow as quickly as we can. I think that whole mindset that I had when I was younger and first starting my firm has completely changed. And that's what I would tell my younger self is like, it's not about growing as quickly as you can. It's about growing as efficiently and sustainably as you can. So I think that's what I would tell myself.
One of the things that's funny is I just today had a conversation with one of my clients and we were talking exactly about this. And one of the things that I can relate to is the fact that when I was younger, what I made up for with experience and let's say just the familiarity of what was happening was definitely that tenacity and work ethic. It was the fact that I would work harder and put in those extra hours, where today I think I'm working smarter, not so much harder. And that experience is finally paying off. And therefore I can be more intelligent about my efforts. So there is this, time and season. And there was early on a good deal of extra effort. Nobody was working harder than I was originally. And so I brought work ethic to the equation, but now I'm able to temper that with experience and maybe work a little bit smarter just because of the experience I have. So anyways, nice little thing there. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think it would be that. It would be like, don't get burned out. Like I know it's unintentional, but I think it's like you have to have that balance. Like, don't forget why you started your company, right? Like, I think I lost that vision of like, I wanted a good work-life balance, not just for me, my people, and I wanted something that I could add value to. The value part never left, but I do think that like I lost the vision of like, why am I doing this? Like I'm doing this for my future self and my future team and all of that. And so I think I would give myself that advice of like, try to sustainably grow. Don't worry about just revenue all the time, worry about the bottom line as well, right? And worry about you trying to keep your passion alive as long as you can.
Lahari, this has been a wonderful conversation. There have been a number of insights here that I really appreciate, and I'm going to maybe highlight a few of them here, but this has been a wonderful conversation. As I wrap this up, there are a few things that I'd like to do, and then I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But one thing that I want to do is point out to everyone that if you'd like to actually speak with Lahari, she's been very kind to provide her calendar. You can find in the episode description. The calendar actually serves two purposes. One, if you'd like to just find out a little bit more about what it is that she's offering as it relates to tax services. She does have an affiliate program for accounting firms to actually white label or utilize her services as it relates to taking care of your clients that you may want to take advantage of. But at the same time, if you'd like to find out a little bit more about her business and what she's doing, feel free to take advantage of this opportunity to spend some time with her, to ask her some questions. The second thing that I'd like to do is point out, as it relates to offers for our listeners, is we spoke earlier of the various accounting services that you can be providing or offering your clients. There is a book that is a must read for accounting professionals. It's called Your Strategic Accountant. Go to the episode description, and there you'll find information regarding the book. It's a free book, all for accounting professionals to understand what are those three core services that businesses expect from us as professionals that we can consider offering to our firm or to our clients. And one of the things that I think is very important about the book is it helps us understand not only what does the client need and expect from us, but more importantly, what is it that we clearly can offer, and most importantly, define as the services we provide. So definitely go get a copy of the book, Your Strategic Accountant, and find out what it is you can be doing to build the premier accounting firm in your area. The other thing that I'd like to invite you to find out more about is Universal Accounting Center happens to offer a number of accounting programs to assist you in providing quality accounting services, the skills necessary to service your clients with confidence. These are becoming a professional bookkeeper, professional tax preparer, and also that of a profit and growth expert. Go find out more what it is you can be doing to have quality staff offering these services within your firm so that you can take care of the clients and offer them the services that they demand. Now, the other things that I'd like to actually point out is a summary of our conversation is one that, I mean, what can you do? Obviously, as an accounting professional, is you can go through this whole experience of starting and building a business, and then you have an experience like the Lahari shared and mentioned. You get to that point where you just want to go out on your own and do this a little bit more intentionally and service your clients. And what really kind of, I think, resonated with me was the support of her parents initially to simply say, you can do this, you can go out and do that, because we all need somebody in our corner suggesting that we actually have the wherewithal to make this happen, and she had that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is when we were talking about services, she clearly chose to niche her services, and one of the things of advice that she received is that it would actually enable her to better market her services and explain what it is she does. And all of a sudden, she was able to grow a thriving business that very successfully serviced that e-commerce space, and most importantly, grow it to the point where she is an expert in that arena, so much so that she was able to then start a second business where she now is also offering not just traditional accounting services, but more importantly, that CFO and advisory. Now, one of the things that stood out to me at that point in the conversation was how she defined that you can't really find individuals that have both skill sets. And that's where we actually need to recognize that as we're hiring and employing individuals, they each will come with the various experience or backgrounds that they have, but we've got to make sure that they end up on the right seat in the bus to best service our clients. One of the things that I want to point out here is that some of these services are not client facing. They are behind the scenes where we're actually taking care of the client's needs and may not involve that person, that employee, interacting with the client. But other times it's having people that actually have that experience and background that can service the client and speak with them on a regular basis and be that point of contact for them from an accounting perspective. And she clearly has those individuals in her employ. The other thing that I thought was helpful was when we were talking about the services offered, what is truly CFO and advisory services? And she explained that she basically has three packages, no less than the $2,500 a month for those services, spending on average, a handful of hours each month servicing them in that capacity. I think that was a good little insight as to what it is that she's providing for her clients as it relates to CFO and advisory services. But the thing that really I want to end on is her final advice as it related to her younger self. The big thing there being burnout, not overworking herself and actually finding that ability to find joy in the work and, more importantly, basically balance. And she spoke of being able to take that as a cultural thing to all of her employees. And I think that was valuable. One of the things that I really want to just kind of point out is she's built two thriving businesses. Lahari has done a very good job of specializing not only in the e-commerce space, but also in that CFO and advisory space. And it's something that I think we can each learn from, because clearly as we grow our businesses to become the premier accounting firms in our our areas, we have to take into consideration what is it that our clients are ultimately receiving from us and better market those things to those clients. So Lahari, what would you like to leave as a closing thought?
Yeah, so I really appreciated being on the show. I think one main thing that's always helped me and that I continue to do even now, and I would kind of like to say to everybody, is always keep learning. I think listening to podcasts like this, joining mastermind groups or joining other accounting groups has been very, very beneficial and helpful for me. I learn from so many other people. I never want to reinvent the wheel. And the fact that we have so many knowledgeable people around us is amazing. And so I think what you're doing here is awesome. And listening to your podcast has been great. So I think everyone just keep kind of learning.
Thank you. I like that. That's something that I feel we all need to be doing. And I agree with you. It's been amazing to me, not only to speak with individuals like yourself, but just hearing podcasts, reading books. It's just keeping that eagerness, that desire to learn alive. And that's one of the things that I think is very helpful. So thank you for pointing that out, especially that of mastermind groups. Highly recommend those as well. It's good to be motivated by other peers, individuals that are just as driven as we are, so that we're able to kind of push ourselves outside of our comfort zones and, more importantly, accelerate the successes we're having because they hold us accountable. So I like that. So what I'm going to do here as I wrap up is, as a listener, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, definitely do so. I invite you to actually subscribe and listen to us each and every week. In addition to the subscription, I want to invite you to actually go to universalaccounting.com, and there finding the website navigation, the podcast section. Here we've actually put together a number of playlists. These are things that you can binge listen based on your current situation. So if you're in a situation of wanting to grow your business, listen to the marketing and sales episodes. If you want to actually look at client retention, you can focus on those areas of better servicing your clients. But at the same time, look at perhaps the mental health conversations that we've been having. These are various topics that you can binge listen and focus on based on your current needs, and I invite you to do so. I also want to point out that Universal Accounting Center is the sponsor of our show. As a post-secondary school for accounting professionals, we've got a variety of programs, courses, curriculums that are designed to not only help the owners of firms, but also to train your staff. Check out the train staff component, where we can actually take the curriculum that we have and help you hire quality individuals that have that work ethic and drive, and ensure that they actually have the skills to service your clients effectively. The other thing I want to do is also invite you to check out universalaccounting.com, where we have free resources. These are resources to assist you, whether it be ebooks, courses, white papers, just a variety of tools to actually assist you in building the premier accounting firm. And then lastly, I want to invite you to GrowCon. If you don't have your ticket already, get your ticket to join us each and every May as we join together with other peers in the accounting space to hear from the experts what it is we should be doing to work on our business, what's cutting edge as it relates to accounting services, and most importantly, what is it that we can do as individuals to build the premier accounting firm. It's here you make connections with your peers, build collaborations, and at the same time, meet my staff, those individuals who are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal. So get your ticket today and register, because I look forward to seeing you there at GrowCon. All that being said, have a wonderful day. Always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is Universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there. Lahari, that was wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. You were great.
Thank you. Well, this was fun. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Now go to the message that I gave you, and we're going to record that promo piece.
Okay, what should I say for we discussed? Because we discussed a lot of things. So I was trying to figure that out. Should I just...
Whatever stood out in your mind, kind of a highlight of what you thought we really kind of harped on that you feel that the people can look forward to.
Do I need to list multiple things, or you think just one thing?
Some people just find one is a great one, just kind of hit it home. Others kind of do like an outline of, here are a few of the things that we talked about, and either's fine.
Okay. I'm like struggling with that. Is there anything that you think?
You talked about why you got started in business, why you went out on your own. You talked about the two different services that you focused on. I liked how you mentioned mastermind groups. Actually, I wish we would have spent more time on that. The advice that you gave yourself is to not becoming overwhelmed. So there were a few things that I thought really kind of resonated with me.
Okay. I'll also say the why we started my businesses. So, okay. Do I go ahead and record?
Yep. When you're ready.
Okay. This is sorry, let me redo this. This is Lahari. It was awesome to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed how I started my two businesses. I invite you to join it. I invite you to listen and join us. Should I redo it?
You don't have to, but I'm going to encourage you to do it because I think
Okay.
you can do it just a little bit better.
Okay. Sorry. I'll redo it
Yeah.
without fumbling my words. Okay. This is Lahari. It was awesome to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed how I started my 2 businesses. I invite you to